Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, it's important to understand what Gnosis is and the reason why it is impossible to change things, and why this is a failed society and will never change and really never has. We have the trappings of really what is very primitive technologies that we have today because we really haven't solved any of our critical problems in life. So, to say that a computer or a phone or something such as that is advanced technology is really looking at things from a very ignorant, low level point of view. But let's get your fortune for the day. Think of something.
You wish to know your future? You shall know it and despair. That's funny stuff. The ancients have had their say, and they say yes.
So the great Sultan has spoken. Okay, so to any thinker out there, we have to understand, well, why doesn't anything work? We do have many geniuses that come along, people who are strange in general, people like Nikola Tesla, who was quite an odd person, who fell in love with a pigeon. And we're talking about physical love here, as he stated. I had all sorts of different problems and basically was pretty mentally ill, yet was able to perform in different areas well. And was a very great thinker. You know, he didn't produce as much as people think and didn't invent AC current. That was invented way before his, nor did he perfect an AC motor. All this was done already and he copied it. So here's another illusion that you probably are living in, thinking that that is not true. So we have all these problems that we run into as a culture that are never solved. So we haven't solved any of our problems. We really have not progressed, and to a certain extent, we've even digressed when it comes into the healing field, the medical field of doing things. The bottom line is that really very little medical breakthroughs have happened for life in general to be at a place where we are increasing lifespan, etc. There's really only been one major breakthrough, which is significant and probably have saved billions of lives, including everyone listening to this, including myself, who probably was saved from death 4 or 5 times by the use of antibiotics. Well, I'm not sure that these patent medicines are the best that everybody says. I mean, there are some people that can't take antibiotics and actually die from them. So nothing is a panacea where everything works. And there's a problem there because if it doesn't work for everybody, it means it's not really a higher level discovery that understands the functioning of the human body and its energy system, which we continue to fight today between East and West, or I should say, ignorance and wisdom. So anything that potentially could work is tossed out the door because this is not accepted because of what? Because there's no science behind it? Well, that, of course, is ridiculous. There's science pretty much behind everything. Acceptable science, or those corrupt idiots that went to school for 20 years to learn dogma, that's not science. Neither is somebody who lives in a fantasy world that thinks that their alternative or new age science somehow works when they're tested many times and it fails. As usual, life is all about the golden mean, or taking the center path and picking from each side of that path information and technologies that work and work particularly for you. Now, nobody thinks like that because you've been brainwashed to think pretty much like a scientist, which is a religion unto itself. And science and religion are almost imperceptibly the same. They are exactly the same. There's very little. They both work in dogma. This is the way it is. That's the way it is, whether there's proof or not. Now, science claims to have proof, which I personally always kind of laugh at. And religion is always screaming, oh, yes, there was this. There's records of this person or this or that. I don't care if there's records of someone anyway, which I don't really believe, but they're trying to say there's records of this person and these particular religious leaders. And that, so what if they were here? What have they done? 2,000 years of Christianity, 1,500 of Islam, and 4,000 of Judaism has produced what? More stupid mysticism that gets us nowhere. So, and the fact that humans feel they're so inferior that they need to have daddy and mommy watch over them, take care of them, and they're so inferior that they think somebody has to help them through the death process is the epitome of the reason why this reality doesn't work. The mommy and daddy reality to thinking that someone else knows something better than you is absurd. If anything, they know less than you on every single level. So, you've been taught that there's an expert, and of course, that expert does what? He puts his hand out. He has a company name to write a check to, but what do they really know? If doctors were paid on their success rate, they'd be probably some of the poorest people out there. I'm not sure why we need doctors for most 90% of things, or just giving you some sort of patent drug that does or does not work and could not have so many side effects. That's not the solution. Again, it's the golden mean. Because we're so ignorant and stupid, we need to have certain drugs that do work, and they do work. People that toss these into the trash saying that you cannot breathe and you should not use an asthma inhaler is pretty stupid. But of course, when we get this into the hands of the ignorant, buffoonish, and evil average person, this turns into a con game where drugs are made up to make you sick, so they have other drugs to cure you, or they're totally void of any value whatsoever, which of course we've seen with antidepressants and certain things. So it's been verified that these don't work by science and by courts, etc. So what are we doing with the bigger picture with all of that? How is this solved? Now, everybody is living in their particular dogma, and it takes a person of very high, powerful inner drive to break away from society, because everything that society teaches, even if they reject you, is the fact of to be part of their little tribe. Isn't that what life's all about? You go to school and you want to be part of the tribe. I want to buy the sneakers because this is what the world says is good, regardless whether your family can afford it or not. So the whole idea is that, and even if they could afford it, why? Why are you buying that? Is there something special about it? You never, people talk about, what is everybody saying about that? I knew a guy who used to, well, what do everybody like about it? You want to be part of the tribe so people would accept him, meaning that he would get better jobs, you would get sex, you would be able to go around wherever you wanted to, do what you want in general, because the tribe has said it's okay with you. This is the kind of social pressure, but that goes on. And for what particular reason? What has the tribe done? Made $300 sneakers? Oh, how nice. Made a $200,000 automobile? Which usually turn out to be toys because you have to fix them all the time, and they're great for rich people, I guess. And, everybody's got their little toys, I guess. So the whole idea is we look at these things and what does it actually mean? What is the reality of it? So, it means that you're kept in a particular dogma and you want to be accepted. I always found this amusing growing up in the late 70s with the hippy dippy crowd. I don't want to follow the establishment, man. I don't want to do what you tell me to do. And of course, these people, and particularly the generation previous to me, which you could call the 60s generation, turned out to be the rottenest scum you could ever think of. And it's always amusing, these selfish, rotten people who not only did what the establishment did, but actually were worse than them, were the first ones to go into the hippy-dippy philosophies and would screw their own families over, rape society, be big polluters, hire people at less wages. Oh, well, we're fighting the establishment, man. Until they were in control. And of course, you want to go to school and do what? You want to wear sneakers, blue jeans, and a t-shirt? You want to look like the tribe. Yeah. You want to be part of the tribe because the tribe rewards you, don't they? Well, I don't know about rewarding of the tribes. Everybody does that, but I don't see where they get much from it. Part of the tribe atmosphere is to keep you under control. That's why they have bells that ring in school. Get up and go to the next class. Do we need that? Is your teacher so inarticulate, so caught in his own little looking up the dresses of the students or babbling the garbage out of the book that has no value to you? They can't say, oh, well, time is up. Let's move on, people. Ding! Yeah, let's get that into your brain. Do what the bell tells you to do. And of course, always, regardless of the lower level, because all teachers are horrible, some are a little better than others, maybe a little more fun, maybe a little more interesting, but they're all little Hitlers that want to be dictators. That's why you become a teacher. You're not teaching people, you're telling them what to do. And of course, the quote administrations are just a corporation. You're there not to learn. They're there to look at the books and say, well, we need bodies and chairs to get money and everything else. And if you're a problem person one way or another, they just want to get rid of you and not solve the situation. And this is, of course, very prominent today, and it was prominent forever. So these are the kind of people that are running everything. Now, what changes a reality is when some person seeks truth. When you seek truth, then everybody's on the same page. And you're seeking truth, not your answer. Now, well, they told me 10 years in school, I now got a dummy degree. It says right here I have a PhD. So the whole idea is that, yeah, now you've been brainwashed. And they've done a real good job of it, particularly if you have a little piece of paper with your name on it. So you're going to be working to establish the old point of view that PhD represents. I hope everybody understands how that's just a path to destruction, which means you're not coming up with anything new, which is why we have nothing new. We really don't have any new technologies whatsoever. We have computer stuff that basically has taken old technology and make it a little easier to use. Things like word processing, where you now type and can correct on a screen. But certainly typing and correcting, which used to be done with little white things you would type over the error you made, something that you youngins don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Or you could say whiteout. Maybe some people have heard of whiteout. So, I mean, it's nothing new. Now, certainly it's fantastic to have spell check and to be able to correct things without having to retype the page. I remember doing that years ago, and that's not that long ago. Even in the 80s and 90s before computers, and you got to remember computers have only been in massive use probably for the last 25 years. Before that, you were typing. And of course, you then have to retype the entire page if you got a word wrong. This is a nightmare. But it's not new tech. So we have things that we put on little storage disks, which are very easy to lose and really a terrible system if you think about it. You have to be very, very careful, and there's many, many things that can happen that information is lost, which when it's in a hardcover form, it's a little harder, but again, you can argue the fact of that, well, you have a big filing cabinet, a metal filing cabinet. Young'uns know what a filing cabinet is. This could get washed away, it could get lost, people could grab it, as I'm sure has happened in millions and millions of times, where you open a filing cabinet and it looks like a bunch of junk and it goes in the trash. So there's no good way of doing things ultimately unless you're really well versed in how to do things. So but the bottom line is things are lost all the time. We lose so much information by a punch of a key on a computer that we cannot get back again. And if you're smart enough, you have multiple backups, but most people don't. But is it new? Is filing cabinet on a chip new? Well, not really. People like to take. I've always amused by Apple's founder, monkey-headed freak man, the rotten guy that he was. But he was alternative. I think he was a Hindu or something. He went to India and they named him Bunghole Rat. And he got all his wisdom there by eating mushrooms. Ooh, Stevie Jobs. Um, so he invented absolutely nothing and did nothing. To think that he actually invented the MP3 player or putting multiple memory chips or cuts of chips on a chip is absurdity, above all absurdity. The fact is, all he took was a variation of something and he changed it into that, or he didn't do it. He gave it to some guy he underpaid and intimidated, saying, if you want this good job, you do what I tell you to do. Here, make it happen. Oh, it's really nice to be in that position. So, so this is the kind of things that happen. So it's not new. Nothing is new. There's hardly anything on this planet. Everything's a variation of something else. As the old saying goes, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's already been invented. Why reinvent it? No, you modify it and make it better, which is basically what we've done with a wheel. Wagon wheels were hard wheels that didn't have any cushion or give to them. Well, now we have air-filled rubber things, or whatever they're made of now, and we've strengthened them, blah, 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 blah. But is it a new concept? Is the wagon wheel any different than your tire on your car? Not really. It's still a wheel. So to give that any kind of credit and to have society be arrogant about that is unbelievable. But people want to fight for old crappy tech. You want to be with the t-shirts and the jeans and live with all the other pigs that have never done anything. And you will fight for them. You will stand up for them. If someone comes out with an alternative opinion that conflicts your teacher, like I used to do all the time, the class wasn't on my side. They were on the teacher's side. You're part of the criminal problem, people who do that. And I'm not necessarily talking to my audience here, who I'm assuming are higher level people that are watching and listening to these things. But everybody falls into this. The love of the familiar. Future Shock is a great book that talks about this, which has been ignored. One of the few books I do remember reading in high school that I found pretty profound from an interesting, or my only interesting teacher really I've ever had in school, period. Mr. Weekly. But the whole idea is that all of this is staying with that. People call themselves conservative means that we don't want to change nothing. And people who call themselves liberals are thinking that they want to change things different from the dogma of the conservatives. Both of these are bad places to be. And we should run from these kind of thought patterns. So this is why things will never change. There's no breaking that. It's reaffirmed. So let's say you're not a religious person, which you're going to believe that same old several thousand-year-old multi-change, multi-interpreted document. That somebody's going to sit up there and tell you what to think, and you're going to live in this unproven fantasy world that something is happening. So every leaf that falls, Jesus did that, Muhammad did that, Yahweh did it. Yeah, I'm okay now because the God is taking care of it. What about all the other people? I guess they ignored them? The billions of people who've been murdered and tortured to death? The innocents? The deformed children that are born, the people who get diseases, good people that die young. Well, they didn't give enough money to the guy in the pulpit. They didn't believe enough. So these are all the things. The having faith is pretty much the stupidest possible thing you can do. You don't want to have faith in anything. You want to have proof that there is some validity to what you're doing. Other than that, you're living in a fantasy world. These are comic book religions, and everybody loves comic books. It's really what it comes down to. And that's all religions. And that includes not only the more popular ones of this day and age, but all the pagan religions as well, which are all faulty nonsense. So people think that there's basically some credence to those as well. There is some credence to older religions because they were more earth-based. And, we live off the earth as we still do today. So, having a little respect or honor or even having reverence for nature and all of the creatures connected to it is something that we could benefit from to this day. But worship of anything is ignorant and stupid. And remember, science is just the worship of numbers and technology. Some 500 Newton, oh, Newton, who was, of course, your typical school of that. The whole British educational system was based on the Roman Catholic teaching system. Got to remember, the Brits, of course, were all Roman Catholics until the Church of England took over and murdered a whole bunch of the people that they were supposedly so close to before because of divorce problems with Henry. Hello, Henry. Chop their heads off. Oh. So the whole idea is that we have all these things that is there, but their systems were the fact is that if you were a teacher, that you could not be married. You were basically living a monk type life, teaching things. Of course, that's how Newton was brought up. Never had apparently any kind of sexual contact. We're not sure if he was gay or not. There was some talk about some family things going on there. But the point is that's where it came from. And this guy spent, for all the people who love Newton and this foundation of modern science, he spent, I think, 10 years studying alchemy, which is extremely metaphysical, dealing with energies and other things, which is probably the reason why he was able to discover the foundations of what is considered common science, because he was able to look at things from a different point of view that others couldn't. But again, science is a dogma. This ridiculous, and it's so symbolic, it's so occult science, it's unbelievable that you have these scientific equations that are basically sigils that combine together to give you information, then based on a contrived mathematical system that explains everything. Because numbers are made up by people. And of course, Newton made up his own mathematical system, I believe it was trigonometry, to explain what he did. Oh, that's nice. Make up your own stuff. So you make up your own little dictionary of words. You talk gibberish, and then you make up a dictionary that explains what the gibberish means. Oh, that's fast. Genius. Let's give Newton a round of applause. And of course, as you said, he was quite a strange egg, as they say. As most of them are. Einstein, who just rewrote stuff, and there's a total mythology about him being semi-retarded and other things. Just complete nonsense. All he did was wrote or plagiarized other scientific documents, which is what scientists do all the time. They plagiarize everything else. That explained the old theories that were there for at least 100 years in a better way that people said, I kind of get it now. This patent representative, who was so highly respected that the only job he could get, they even turned him down for a high school science teacher, was he could get in the patent office. It just shows you, if he was such a great man, it just shows you how disrespectful science is in general. And how they didn't like his thoughts until he copied something else, changed a few words around in the horrible, indescriptive language that he wrote in, German, that people kind of could figure it out. So we have to know all this stuff. But am I confusing you with the facts, people? I hope not. So the whole idea is that we live in these dogmas, and now nothing can go faster than the speed of light, even though that's been pretty much 100% disproven, but not by the classical lettered, I think that's the terminology, which means you have a letter with your name on it and it says school at top. Me making school here. And they don't discount any of that. They don't believe any of that because in their minds, none of it is proven. Of course, Einstein's theories were never really proven anyway. There was always a big debate between him and, I think it was Max Bohr, the Danish physicist, about quantum physics and his theories as well. So there's always a big debate there going on as well. So nothing has really been confirmed. I'm not sure we can believe anything that common science tells us. other than what is so irrefutable, which becomes part of engineering. And remember, engineers are not scientists. Engineers are supposed to take scientific theories and make them work, which gives them validity to a degree. There's an awful lot of very bad engineering out there, if not most of it. So we have to look at that as well. So there's a big difference there, and people confuse that. So engineers are forced to live in the real world because you can't build a bridge that falls down because, oh, yes, my theory was that, yes, mud is as strong as steel. I read a paper on it. Yeah. So this is the kind of things that you run into. So if you do that, you're not going to be building too many bridges ever again. So the whole idea is this is what forces a certain thinking that makes sense. There is engineering is basically the real world that has taken information from science and from the real world, like metal, and putting it all together. But it is ultimately, science has no value unless it can be proven out in the engineering realm. So if you say that this steel can handle this amount of weight as a scientist, well, that means nothing. The engineer has to take it and test it. And if it works, then you get credit for it, which you probably stole that information from somebody else anyway, which is what science is all about. Remember, that's what a bibliography is. Here's where I stole all my information from. Here's the books I got it from. So this is, of course, is another fallacy of everything that we put together is never given. Nobody diverses from it. So you read a book that's 50 or 60 years old to get your foundation from, and then you put your own personal little spin on it. And that's exactly how all of life works. Now, some of these spins are interesting. Most of them are not. And that's why we have such little reality in life. So the point is the entire system is set up that nothing new comes in, nothing new is supported. Now, the religious people will not support any new religions, even if they have great insights. You already know everything, and that's the same exact attitude that science takes. Science is all about confirming the old and rejecting the new. What is the problem with both of these, to take two of the instances here? They are not seeking truth. Now, until we seek truth, and still we understand looking for the facts of the situation, we will never get anywhere. Nobody is seeking truth. People are seeking to reaffirm their belief systems. This just happened with my recent studies with the martial arts and internal martial arts, where people who are martial artists, by the way, want to state that all the internal martial arts and chi and everything else is a big joke. I've heard this from years. You got to remember that martial arts has been downgraded to bottom feeders, who are basically guys off the street. Hey, who can I punch? It's dangerous as a who can I punch? Well, I want to punch people better, and I want to use my legs to kick them. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing really new about that. So you went from boxing to martial arts to picking your nose on the street corner, and it's the same thing. You're not seeking truth. What is the truth of all this? Firstly, you probably shouldn't even need to have martial arts if we have a proper society where people did not attack other people. And that's what we should be looking for answers, is not how to defend yourself, but how do we stop the need for defending? We should always look for the root cause of everything. What is the root cause of this? How do we build from the energetic on up? And of course, that's what internal martial arts is all about. You're taking the essence that creates the muscle movement and the force behind it to strike an opponent, and you're taking the energy from that creates everything, and using that. And of course, that is the balance of life, which I've put out in my Great Path course, which explains all this stuff. It explains how the universe works. So if we go to the root cause, which is truth and wisdom, and we work from there. Secondly, you want to seek what the truth of it is. So these bozo punchers and kicker bottom feeders don't spend any time. They look at a video which tells you nothing. Anybody who's ever filmed anything, or basically anybody who lives in life who thinks about it, understands how deceptive film is and how it's so hard to really tell from a picture what's really going on compared to being there in 3D and perceiving it. First of all, you have no feedback. You can't have any feedback whatsoever because you're not there. You can't ask questions. You can't stop the film and go back and call that person. You know, when this was happening on that video, you can't do it. So there's many, many limitations. But the bottom line is to think that you have the consciousness to judge anything you're seeing is amusing to begin with. But secondly, taking somebody else's opinion or judging something because you don't like the looks of it, because people were flipped around and it appears to be staged as these people are paid, and that's what they all say. Whether it appears, because, what is being flipped around by chi energy look like? Where's your experience with that? Well, it doesn't exist. There is no experience. What do you mean it doesn't exist? Go on for thousands of years. Your little film is demonstrating it. Oh, that's no good. I see it in 100% light. It's there on film, but I don't believe it. Well, see, here we go again. Here we go again. That's what people wanted us to prove. Give me pictures of aliens. Oh, that's all film. That's all done in the computer to make that. None of it's real. So this is what you run into. And of course, before they had computers, it was give me a film. I want a photograph of it. Then, of course, people would look at the photographs endlessly and say, oh, see the string here? See this, see that? It's all faked. And then, of course, when we got into computers, they had the rationale. It's all done in Photoshop. It's all Photoshop, which I'm assuming can be deciphered if you're a person who understands Photoshop and how it works. I'm assuming you can tell if something is Photoshopped or not. But I'm not sure, but it's all that's it. So you can't win if you see it in person. No, it's all fake. It's fake. You can thank James Randi and his bottom feeder scumbucket perverts and deviants for discrediting anything that they didn't understand. But how would they understand it anyway? Oh, it's all tricks. It's all tricks. Here, I'll show you. I can do the same trick. That doesn't prove anything. That just proves you can deceive someone. Usually it pays you hundreds of dollars because, these people are worth, Penn and Teller are worth $300 million. Pretty good money for tricking people and laughing at them. So the whole idea is we have to understand these realities that are out there, that all of this comes down to the fact that everything, because you've got preconceived conceptions and you want to prove your belief systems. So if you believe everything is staged and false, you're going to do everything possible, even to the point of deceiving yourself and lying, that what you believe is right. Now that's the problem with society, because nobody is seeking Gnosis. The truth of the issue. The truth of the issue is there. The truth of the issue can be found out, and it has to be sought with an independent mind, not trying to fulfill your own belief systems, and finding the truth, and that's what will move society ahead. That never, ever happens, whether it's ego, power, or wealth and money that comes involved in it. So you want to do what you make money from, or you want to support your own system, because again, God forbid your reality is a little bit stressed by the fact that you finding out that, no, these are comic book gods. They're no different than Spider-Man. And your science is a contrived bunch of garbage that really has done nothing. Your false explanations of what's really happening in the world are just that. And your dogma are crimes against humanity, just as religion is. Understand that, and you understand why the world is all messed up and will never change. Until next time.